everyone. Welcome to episode 222 of 15 with Andy, Randy, and Jeff. And you know what? It is summertime in Florida. And you know what that also means, though? You get to the end of August and it's hot and it's all those things, but it also means it's Randy's birthday. So this past weekend, I didn't do anything except sit on the beach, soak up the sun. I did get a little burnt, and my wife, I fared better than Heather. In 50 years of life, she has never once actually sunburned her lips. And today she has been, spraying all of these concoctions. She's been rubbing aloe on them. And just a little bit ago, one of the blisters on her lips actually popped. And I'm like, oh, right. So, it could have been worse, but the thought was good. We spent a weekend away. And so I missed everything church. We didn't even watch church this week, which is unusual. And so I had to go past this all and catch up because it just wasn't there this week. And it felt good, but I also missed church. So I appreciate everything that we do each week, trying to make sure that church is available and it's easily accessible. Just this weekend, my girls were like, you don't get to bring your laptop. And really, we'd really appreciate it if you just didn't even do anything on your phone. Just leave it away. So this week, discipling others, I thought, last week I started out by saying that Andy had set the stage for us as disciples and tried to, calm our fears about the difficulty in attaining those lofty discipleship goals of discipling like Jesus. And this week, I think he started with just the opposite. He said, I've wondered something this week. To some of you, my pondering may have a heretical ring. But the more I've considered the thought, the more I'm thinking the truth is not far from it. I wonder if Jesus invited us to play and we turned it into work. Seriously, Jesus' invitation was clear. Follow me. It might push some of you too far to say he was inviting those people into a divine human game of follow the leader. And I was like, oh boy. But when you think about it that way, the immediate question is, why is it so hard for many of us to believe that maybe Jesus wasn't a 24/7, 365 soldier on a mission that he knew would end in his doom, and therefore he must have been this stoic, no-nonsense teacher with no time for silliness, right? That seems like sometimes how we see him, and that doesn't mean that that's correct. No. So speaking personally, what is it that you see or has happened in your life that leads you to believe that? Even with the limited knowledge that we have about, the off hours of even the very short account that we do have of his life, that really makes you feel like play was part of his personality or maybe even part of his plan.
Well, you can see in his teaching a definite humor, hyperbole, stretched points, red herring story, that where you think it's going one way, it goes another. And he had at least a certain wit about him, for sure. And there's a playfulness in his response to some people, and it just, yeah.
As you said that, Andy, I got to thinking it was an interesting take. But if you think about it, the miracles that Jesus did, and if you look and trace through those, the miracles that he did were actually miracles that he was actually taking away stressors or obstacles that kept them from following him. In other words, the pressure of the wedding and not having enough wine for the wedding. He's taking away the stressor so that he actually provided something that was even more joyous, something that was actually even more beneficial. The blind man, he spits on the ground and he takes off these shackles or scales on his eyes, so to speak, and now he's able to see it. So I think you're really onto something from the standpoint of he tries to remove those things so that the business is really about just following rather than worrying and stressing over the things that are in forefront in my mind.
Yeah.
Well, the more I thought about it, I'm thinking to myself, now dealing with the disciples on a 24/7, 365, I mean, that would almost certainly need some humor to keep oneself sane, Son of God or not, just to be with a group of people that the dynamic nature of all of those individuals and their personalities, and I don't know, just get 12 people and like we're going to, like you said, Andy, they're going to camp out. They're going to walk everywhere. It's going to be hot. And I mean, have you ever hung out with 12 people for 3 years, pretty much day to day? And just like, how could that possibly not had humor in it in order for everyone to have survived in any way, shape, or form that would have put you in a mindset to do these miracles or to, and I guess some of the accounts of the disciples, they didn't seem like they were always in a great mood to different people. And they thought that, Jesus gave too much of his time away. But that almost seems like that is lending itself in part to this idea that maybe Jesus was a lot more playful and just wanted to reach people with humor or with a smile and more of a playful nature than more so as this stoic. I don't know. Is it because that he's the Son of God that we immediately apply this label or this personality to him?
Well, no, we have missed. We've mixed up. Here I go. Okay, but we've confused importance and somberness together.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if something's important, then it's got to be a little bit, I don't know, serious and harsh and somber and stoic.
Sure.
And that's not necessarily true. Why can't very important, serious things have laughter and joy attached to them, not just this stiffness that we sort of want to put on the spiritual? So I think it's our what were they? Not the Pilgrims, the come on, Andy, Puritans.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe our puritanical heritage has we've read that back onto Jesus versus reading it from him.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? Yeah. I think you're onto something in the fact that it seems like, I don't know, growing up, and I've heard people say that they miss this when it comes to church, where like people don't dress up enough anymore. Pastors, Sabbath school teachers, even just parishioners walking through the door. We want suit, tie. If you're Catholic, there's the robes, the hat, and all the pageantry that goes with it. But walking softly in the sanctuary, that was something. There's a song, wasn't there, when we were kids, something about walking softly in the sanctuary, or was that Pathfinders? I don't know, something about that.
Yeah, I think you're confusing Pathfinders with some other song.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like none of those are bad things. I mean, it should be, respectful and all of that. I'm not saying anything to the contrary, but do we just then take those ideas and we see that seriousness, we see business attire, and immediately we're putting ourselves in another box?
God is two things simultaneously. He's totally other. The distance between me and him is greater than measurable. I mean, he is everything. He's got it all together. He understands everything. He's totally holy. Okay, so the difference between me and him is he's totally transcendent. He's totally other.
Yeah.
But then he's also the immanent God. He's the Father in whose lap into which we climb. He's the one who puts his arm around us in times of when we're challenged and encourages us. So there's this closeness and there's this distance. And it's funny that we tend to swing one way or the other. We like to think about the whole transcendence of God, or we try to think about his immanence. To hold both of those in our hands, they seem almost paradoxical. But he is both those things. He is both close and far.
But we're talking about redemption and salvation. I mean, Jesus' time on the earth was this, idea that he was going to come and redeem the entire human race. So doesn't redemption, salvation, I mean, it is serious business, and it would, I mean, is that lessening the impact of the cross or anything that he did by, I mean, it almost seems sacrilegious to say that somehow that we should be, I mean, maybe I'm getting it wrong, but I don't think, or I don't feel personally that installing humor or fun or playfulness as a way of coming at things makes them any less serious, but it almost seems sacrilegious. I mean, is that just because we've been trained to feel that way? Is that where we get it from? Or is this our conscience telling us? Because I know that's what I've heard. People say, well, it's your conscience. It's Jesus. It's God telling you that this is wrong. And we should be more contemplative, and we should be serious, and we should be respectful, and we should do all these things the way they've always been done. Or is this just tradition versus looking at it another way?
Well, we never want to make light of God.
Right.
Never make light of God or his work on our behalf. Those are wonderful gifts. But just as we don't make light of them, we don't have to make them heavy either. You know, we tend to think it's sacrilegious to make light of them. I think it may also be sacrilegious to make them too heavy.
Ooh. Yeah, I like heavy.
Yeah, I
like
think
heavy.
A lot of times we get caught in these words that we have used for so long to mean something. Like you said at the very beginning, playful kind of reminds you of being silly. And maybe we just need to change some of our definitions. Mm-hmm. And maybe we can, reframe this whole conversation to actually be a little bit more, all of us have different, terminologies, but to be able to think of Jesus in different terminologies that help us understand him in his eminence, like Andy said, like we even say, did Jesus work? Well, yeah, he did work, but we wouldn't equate that with, performing. Or, he was productive, but we wouldn't equate that with something that was, building a company. So we have to use these different terms. So maybe we just have to change some of our words and our terminologies for these things.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between joy and laughter and play and abject silliness.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
If we've got a fulcrum we have to go on and go out and stand on to balance, it's quite a way, because the church has just, is heavy-fied a word?
If it isn't, I think it should be for this, because even if we have to make up some words that really say how we're feeling, and that changes, like Jeff, like you're talking about, changing the way we think about things by just changing some vocabularies. If we're just saying, hey, this is too heavified for me, I think we need to lighten it up a little bit. Maybe there's that's what it takes to make the tipping point to start that paradigm shift towards realizing that there might be better ways to do it, or at least different ways that are acceptable, that we don't have to get all up in an ire about, because that always seems to be the end of it. It's almost like politics when you talk about this, because the people that are so into the one way of doing it, it's the way it's always been, there's no room for change, and change of this nature, I mean, it's silly, it's all these things. We just can't have that. This is serious.
It wasn't me who said this. It was Jesus who said, except you become as little children, you're not going to enter the kingdom of heaven. And little children are not known for seriousness. They're known for play.
They're known for play.
And we think of play as frivolous, but play is discovery. Play is seeing things from new angles. Play is being able to
relational and
get caught off guard, and it's a discovery. It's a journey of discovery. When kids are playing, they're discovering.
Well, and I think that I know I've talked about this it feels like the last couple of weeks, but the show The Chosen, and it's something that my family and I now, we've watched it all the way through a couple different times, and there's different things that you pick up on. And when you started talking about this message right at the beginning, it brought me to the episode that contains the wedding feast, and Jesus' first miracle, changing the water into wine. And the the picture, again, this is just a TV show, and it's just somebody's idea of, well-researched, but someone's idea of what that event was like, what might have led to the scarcity of the wine not being enough, and the social impacts that would have had and were having. And when you see Jesus interacting with Simon and Andrew, and the smiles and they had fun. They went there and they had a good time. I'm sure Jesus knew what was going to happen. And, he talks to his mom and he does all of it with a smile on his face. And it has brought me to maybe a different look at Jesus than I've had before. And again, it's just a TV show. And there's plenty of people that have their own opinions and they don't like this show and they think they take too much liberty with different, even what would have happened in this time and in this place. But to me, I really resonated with your message because after watching the show and totally in line with what you're saying is that I think Jesus could have very easily, and maybe more so than not, been more of a playful, having a joke, playing a little prank, or having fun with the disciples and other people that really drew people to him more so than, we always assume everyone knew he was the Son of God, but many people just knew him as a teacher. So what brought people to him? And I think there's a lot to be said for that type of approachable, right? He was just approachable. And think about it today. Some of our favorite people are people that we can just approach because they're fun. They make conversation interesting. They make us laugh. And who doesn't like to laugh? Maybe now more than ever during a pandemic. So I think that's really changed my perspective. And so I was really interested in what you had to say in this message, and maybe because the two work together. But I think that we're onto something here with that. It just doesn't need to be you shouldn't be interjecting fun here. This is serious business. And I don't know, maybe I feel a little more comfortable.
Randy, when you're talking like this, it wasn't unnoticed that Jesus was having fun, because the Pharisees and the leaders of the church came to him and actually said, hey,
you're having too much fun.
You're having too much fun. John's disciples never did this. And talking about John the Baptist. And he responds, hey, when the bridegroom's here, it's time to celebrate. And so he did not make any bones about it, that's what he was going to be about.
I don't know. To me, that's reassuring, and it may not be to everybody, but the next couple of things that Andy talked about, and we did talk about this a little bit last week. We touched on it, but Andy went into more detail and what makes anyone look at us and think, I wonder what it is about them that I'm drawn to, or they seem so happy, fulfilled, and why would anyone just follow us as imperfect followers of Jesus that we are in this game of follow the leader? But Andy asked a few questions this week that I want to cover, maybe not to answer necessarily, but they really left me thinking about them ever since I looked at them on Sunday night. He asked, what is it about your own lifelong friendship with God that would attract anyone to want to be a follower of Jesus? Seriously, is there any qualitative difference in your life and the lives of your secular friends as we move through the pandemic? Ouch, that one hurts a little bit. What about your being a follower of Jesus and a friend of God is better than the non-follower, non-friend of God? And here's a concern for me and a concern I have for you. Do we make being a disciple and making disciples too arduous, demanding, and laborious? And he finished with, I think too many Christians too often have made it something it wasn't meant to be. And maybe the hardest hitting, our enemy, the devil, knows how to keep us exhausted. And if you really stop and think about those four things, those are questions that, I don't know, if you don't have answers for, it's a little scary. Maybe more so than whether or not we think Jesus should have had any fun or not. I mean, really,
good point.
Right? I mean, those are four things that if there is no difference in quality, quantity, I mean, I don't know what all the defining factors are, but if there's really no difference between you and who we would consider a secular friend, then what is it about what we're doing that makes anyone want to come on this side and taste and see that the Lord is good? I mean, what should the top three things be that someone should see in us that they're not getting anywhere else?
we know from a lot of sources that it's really, really hard. It's hard to be led by someone you don't like.
Well, there you go.
Not that it's impossible. I mean, if you're in the Army, you may not like your general, but you're going to still obey, kind of thing.
Right.
But from a pure leadership standpoint, it's really tough to be led by people we don't like. And so I really think one of the calls for us as Christians is to be likable. Show ourselves friendly. That's where we have the opportunity to build those relational bridges.
That seems so simple. Like, just be nice, be friendly, be approachable, be somebody wants to hang out with.
Well, that's really, I mean, at the end of the day, I spoke about a couple weeks ago about, our strategy is to hang out with people and get to know them and sympathize with their situations and hear their stories and minister to their needs, win their confidence, and invite them to follow Jesus. If you're not very, if you're not very nice, if you're no, I'm serious now. If your religion has turned your smile upside down, people really don't care what you know.
That's true.
Or what you believe. And so this is not a call to compromise. This is not a call to lose principles. It's a call to be affable. It's a call to be pleasant and engaging and conversational, and it means different things for different people who are wired differently. But the reality is, whether I'm an extrovert or an introvert, whether I'm a loner or a people person, or whatever the variances are, I can still be affable. I can be nice. I can be pleasant to be with, regardless of my style.
Absolutely.
Well, I think there's another side of that, and that is that it's one thing to be led or to have somebody over you that you are basically needing to take charge and, more like a sergeant, like you said. But it's another thing to desire to be with. And I think that's the whole piece, is that God is everything. He is certainly the one that knows us, so he can lead us. But he's also somebody I want to hang with, I want to be with. And I think those are the pieces that very rarely can you ever achieve those two by, just being an autocrat and saying, follow me, But the fact that they all wanted to be with him,
And I think we need to take that to heart for who we are as well.
Yeah.
If nobody seems to want to be with you, it's probably a good time to re-examine a little of your walk. Sounds so mean.
No, I know. That's why I was laughing before, because it's like you were trying to pick your words very carefully, and you did a great job because that's part of it, though, right? Is trying to say what you want to say and speak truths that sometimes are more difficult than others, but to do it in a way that people understand that this isn't a dagger thrown at you. This isn't a rock thrown through your window, because I live in a glass house. And so we're all in the same boat here. And it can be very, very difficult. And I think that's the part that a lot of people go, you know what? I'm not even sure that this is the right thing to do. And then this just might end up making somebody mad. It's just going to create more drama. But at the end of the day, I think if we bring it back to who didn't want to be by Jesus, who didn't want to be in his company, who didn't want to listen to his stories and find that love that he was so freely just allowed to flow through him and into others. And so I think what you're saying is we just need, like you said, we need to be affable. We want to be the people that we'd like to hang out with, or that others would welcome a chance to be around. And I think we get the two confused so easily about the seriousness or the levity. And I hope at least our discussion, we may not have answered every question, but at least if we can rest on the part that, this doesn't lessen how serious you are about loving Jesus or how how much you love Jesus or that you're not taking things seriously. And we just want to be more relatable and more engageable to others around us. If that's where we can land, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah. If Jesus was serious that he won't put anything ill-fitting or heavy on us, and if we stick with him, Matthew 11:28 in the Message Bible says,
yeah,
we'll learn how to live freely and lightly.
Exactly.
And there'll be a certain attractiveness to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this week, one of our whole life takeaways stays on track, and it asks, what are your thoughts about the idea that God invites us to play and we turned it into work? Now, I know there was a ton of them this week, by the way. All the takeaways were worth time and investing to think about and to see how they might apply to your life. You can find them on the website, wholelife.church. They're in the sermon archives and their sermon notes. Just click the link there. It's in today's show notes here in the podcast, so just swipe up. You can find it there. Or you can listen to our message podcast each Tuesday evening, Speaking of Grace. And in their show notes, all of them are always included, so you can easily find them. And I know I referenced my Midwest upbringing a lot. And seemingly, it's most often when attempting to tackle an idea or thought in our takeaways, because for me, they typically challenge the status quo or the long-held beliefs. And I'm air quoting beliefs because I think in this case and in many cases, I think if we were honest with ourselves and the amount of actual biblical clarification of our beliefs, we would classify many more of them as preferences. For me, I've never entertained the thought of God being fun or playful before this and before recently. It wasn't the picture of him that I was taught, and I'm not saying it was purposeful. I'm not blaming anyone, because I don't even know if it was realized by many. But simply, it was just the accepted or acceptable view of God that was in my surroundings. And it took years for that idea to man itself, even as a possibility. And it was probably a bad idea that it was a possibility. Blasphemy, most likely. But now I've met too many people like Andy, like Jeff, like many people at Whole Life Church and other places that I see the heart of Jesus in their daily lives and in their actions that show his love. They manifest it in the play of their talk, their actions, and the way they speak about the love of Christ. It made me want to be that Christian to my family and my circle, and it presents itself in so many ways that I don't think we even think about. And it doesn't cheapen or lessen my walk with God, but it's done exactly the opposite and made it deeper and more meaningful. So if you can grow up that way and then find it on the other side of your upbringing to say, you know what, I think this might not be a bad idea, and I'm pretty sure it's not blasphemy, but I know it's not the easiest thing to step over that line and try on something new. But what about you? How have you found the invitation to play? Have you accepted it? Have you put it on the back burner? Or is this okay, I found it, but it's not for me? We'd just love to see what the thought process is in our Whole Life community. And for those that listen, I know we have a lot of people that listen from other countries, different places. Would love to hear your perspective on what you feel play or how play is involved in this. Send a voicemail or text 407-965-1607 or podcast at Whole Life Church if you are of the email persuasion. All right, the final thoughts this week come from a well-known passage from the book of Matthew that we've already referenced briefly that brings an invitation and a roadmap for how Jesus says this whole disciple thing is supposed to work. He said, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." Andy just referenced that. And I really like the freely and lightly part of that. And the message is actually one of my favorite. It's not the one I study. It's not the one I read every day in my daily reading, but it is the one that when I find something that seems too complicated or too difficult, sometimes I go to that and I find another kind of like this. I'm a little more serious what I read, but then sometimes I just need that little extra playful. And sometimes the message is that other side of the playful that we need. And I think in this verse and in this couple of verses in this chapter, it is maybe the best antithesis of what it reads in the other version. So live freely and lightly. That sounds really, really good to me. So, guys, this was what? The last of, we have a new series coming up, correct?
Yeah.
And,
Yes, we do.
And what?
Yeah, new series this coming week is Simply Gospel. And
Jeff is going to be preaching.
What?
Yay!
I'm giving Andy a break.
All right. Well, I mean, not all right, because Andy's getting a break. Well, that's good, Andy. I'm glad you're getting a break, but
Yeah, but no, it's
good for Jeff.
Good.
So what are we talking about?
Basically, it's kind of a takeoff of, you're familiar with the Simply orange juice, Simply lemon, basically.
Some of my favorites,
The
in fact.
idea is that, yes, nothing added, so to speak. And actually, I went to the label and I looked at the orange juice, and it actually is right. Nothing is added, which is kind of
So we're talking about truth in advertising
I
here.
actually believe this.
All right. So just like the orange juice and the lemonade, we can trust Jeff not to add anything this week. Are you going to put a label on this or what?
So it's called Simply Gospel. It's Simply Gospel, but this one is called Nothing Added.
Nothing added. Awesome. Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we will
definitely
good. I can't wait. I always love it. I mean, I'm always sad to see series go because it seems like you just get into the flow and the thought process of what we're trying to digest and apply to our lives, and then we move on to the next. But this year,
all right.
But this year, I feel
Have a 10-parter.
Andy's language.
But this year,
Work our way through Isaiah.
Yeah, there you go. As long as you didn't say numbers, I'm probably with you there. Let's.
There you go.
We just finished that not too long ago in the reading plan, and that was brutal. But anyway, that's just me. But I like the fact. I think this year we've maybe done a better job of, since we've been at WholeLife Church, really, of each one of the message series have really dovetailed into the next very smoothly. So I feel like we've kind of been talking about the same things for a little bit longer maybe than in the past. So I myself personally have been enjoying that. So kudos to staff and everyone that makes all that happen. So, all right, that's going to do it for this week. It's as always, Tuesday evening is Speaking of Grace. Next Wednesday, as usual, for episode 223. Thanks for listening, guys, and have a great week.